Hi everyone. Okay, let's look at calculating break-even points. This actually is directly out of your textbook on page 192, and it's talking about, this page anyway is talking about all the different calculations. Okay, so we have SP, which is selling price per unit. So again, if we were looking at that lamp and we were selling it, if we were selling it for $5 per lamp, okay, that would be the selling price per unit. Variable cost, we had talked about, well, what if the lamp, when we bought it, cost us $2? That would be the variable cost per unit. Fixed costs is, again, whether we're talking about the amount our rent is each month or whether we're talking about insurance expenses, depreciation, interest, all of those added together, all of your fixed costs added together is fixed costs. And then N is the quantity of units um, that we're selling at the break-even point. That's what we're talking about. Okay, so your total revenue, again, it's how much it is per unit. So if we sell those lamps for $5 each and we multiply it by maybe 1,000 lamps that we're selling, so our total revenue would be 5,000, right? $5 per, and then we sell 1,000 of them. Total cost is the variable cost per unit multiplied by n, which is our 1,000. So variable cost was $2 times 1,000. So that's our variable costs in total plus any fixed costs. So maybe we have 15,000 in fixed costs. So that would be 15,000 plus variable cost total of 2,000. So our total cost would be 17,000. Um, okay, so then break even is that formula is a little bit confusing. We'll get to that in a minute, okay? All right, so moving on to the next slide. So just as long as you understand what each of those acronyms stand for. Okay, so looking at this, say we have right there up at the top, fixed costs, our total fixed cost for the organization is $100,000. We have a selling price of $200. So maybe we're selling a printer, selling price at $200 and a variable cost of $100. So again, if you remember, our contribution margin is your selling price minus your variable cost, in this case per unit. So if we sell one, we get 200. The variable cost is 100, so therefore our contribution margin is 100. Selling price minus variable costs. Okay, so looking at the first formula here in our break-even point calculations, okay, break-even point is our fixed cost divided by our contribution, okay? So our contribution margin. So as we saw up here, our contribution margin is $100. So if we have our fixed cost, which is 100,000, divided by our contribution margin, which is $100, then our break-even point is 1,000 units. Okay, so the revenue break-even point. Okay, so that, if you remember when we were talking about the variable cost, um, sorry, I need to go backwards. So when we were talking about our vertical analysis here, right? That's your 100%, that's 75%, and this was 25%, or your profit volume, um, your PV ratio is 0.25 or 25%. So if we want to look at it that way, in this case, we have a selling price of 200. So therefore that's your 100% minus $100. So 100 divided by your 200 gives you 50%. So therefore your contribution margin would be 50%, or the unit contribution, your $100, divided by your selling price gives you 50%, or 0.50. So therefore your break-even point for dollars is your fixed cost, which is the 100,000, divided by your PV ratio, which is zero point 0.5 or 50%, would be 200,000. So therefore, in order to break even, you need either, there's there 1,000 units, or in this case, revenue of 200,000, which is exactly the same thing, because 1,000 units multiplied by selling price of $200 right here is going to give you $200,000. Okay, all right, moving on to the next one. So what if we actually wanted to not just break even, right? Right here we're talking about our break even points. And break even is when exactly that, you break even. So all of your costs are covered with zero profit in the end. And nobody wants that. You want to at least do that, but nobody wants to just break even. So if you want to figure out how many units you need to sell, or how much revenue you need to have, um, to reach a certain level of profit, then you need to not just meet, sorry for flipping back and forth, but not to just meet our fixed costs up at the top, right? We actually want to add profits up there. Okay, so we knew our fixed costs were 100,000, and if we wanted to have a profit of 10,000, then 100,000 plus our 10,000 divided by our contribution margin, which is $100, or your 200. Okay, it keeps disappearing. 200 minus the 100, which is your selling price, minus your variable cost, gives you your contribution of $100. So 100 plus 10,000 divided by $100 gives you 1,100 units. Or looking at it in a revenue, how much revenue do we need to earn? So the profit break-even point is your fixed cost plus your profit, which is your 110,000, divided by your PV ratio of zero point 0.5 or 50%, is going to give you $220,000, which is the same thing as your 1,100 units multiplied by the selling price of $200 gives you your, keeps disappearing. Whoops. Ooh, sorry about that. Here we go. Okay, which gives us our 220. Okay. All right. We are now at the 9-minute mark. I'm going to stop here.